Everyone is having this discussion right now of whether the WNBA made a major mistake in not marketing Indiana Fever player Caitlin Clark when she was on her rise to stardom. Now, a lot of people just feel like, yes, that they did, and that they want to shift all the blame to the W, but I don't think actually all of that blame should be on the league itself. So we'll be talking about that in this episode. Plus, we have the NBA and the NHL finals right now, and it is heating up. It is getting absolutely crazy. So we'll be talking about that as well. And on top of that, we have the World Cup starting this week. So we'll be discussing that as well. Hello everyone, welcome back to a brand new episode of Ball Talk with Chanel. If you're new here, hello, my name is Chanel, and every week we discuss the latest news and scores that's happened in sports. So let's just jump right into it. Let's get into the crux of what I want to talk about today, and that is about Caitlin Clark and the WNBA. Now, like I mentioned in the beginning of this episode, a lot of people want to figure out whether the WNBA actually made a mistake in not promoting this star player, right? So a lot of people feel that the WNBA were very bitter, that a lot of players didn't want to have this happen, and that is why Caitlin Clark was not getting the marketing that she deserved and everything else. So let's actually discuss this, because I think this is something that is very misconstrued. I think a lot of people are very misinformed, and let's actually discuss everything that's happened. So yes, of course, we all know Caitlin Clark had her stardom for 4 years at Iowa, right? But she really did not get her stardom until that junior year when she made that run to the Natty, and then she got beat by Angel Reese and the LSU Tigers. Then afterwards, right, then her senior year, that's when she became very popular. And then, of course, she was the number 1 overall pick in the WNBA draft. And then her popularity just kind of skyrocketed, right? The WNBA popularity just skyrocketed after that, right? And so a lot of people want to sit here and discuss whether the WNBA should have taken a lot more steps in marketing and taking advantage of that momentum. And I think to an extent, we should be looking at the WNBA and what it failed to do, right? So yes, I do agree that the WNBA, especially in Caitlin's first year, should have absolutely taken advantage of the fact that Caitlin Clark is blowing up, because at the end of the day, if she is bringing new fans into the league, everyone wins. These fans now, yes, they could be looking at Caitlin, but that's how you also get eyes onto other players. That's how you get eyes onto Sabrina, your Brianna, your Asia, your Kelsey Plum, your Arike, your Chelsea Gray. That's how you get eyes onto the other players, where people would look at Caitlin and they would say, oh, well, who are these other players, right? So I do agree in that I do feel like the WNBA should have taken more advantage of this Caitlin Clark hype, stardom, right? This massive fame that she was accumulating, right, throughout her years in college and her also entering into the WNBA, right? I think especially with Kathy Engelbert and the comments that she made about Caitlin and about how Caitlin needs the W and the W does not need Caitlin was also just a really bad look on the W, right? So in those aspects, I do agree that the WNBA should have taken a lot more in marketing Caitlin. And I understand that a lot of people were like, oh, okay, well, we're so focused on Asia Wilson because she needs to have more of the marketing because she is effectively the face of the WNBA. Okay, I agree. I do think Asia Wilson is the face of the WNBA. I do think arguably she is one of, if not the best player in the WNBA. And there are also some other people that were saying, okay, well, if Caitlin Clark is getting all of this hype, then Angel Reese needs to also get this hype, right? Because she is just as popular as Caitlin. Okay, I do understand where people are coming from, but I do think there is a simple solution to that, and that is just to put everybody in the same commercial. That's all you have to do. You don't necessarily have to focus on one player when you can just put all of them in the same exact commercial. And I know a lot of people want to say, oh, well, what if we only want to see Caitlin? What if we only want to see Angel? Well, you can just make separate commercials for them, but the majority of the time, majority of the airtime on TV should be a commercial with Caitlin, with Asia, with Angel, maybe even throw in Brianna if you wanted to, or Nafisa, whoever you want. Just put them all in the same commercial. If you do that, everybody wins. You bring everybody together. You get all the Caitlyn fans together. You get all the Angel fans together. You get the Asia Wilson, rest of the WNBA fans. And everyone wins if you just put all three players in the same commercial. But it seemed like the WNBA did not want to do that and seemed like they wanted to focus a lot on Asia. Which, again, I understand why you want to do that with Asia because she is arguably, like I said beforehand, the best player in the WNBA. But right now, at this moment, when Caitlyn has all this hype and all this momentum, I felt like the WNBA should have really just jumped on it, right? Look at this Caitlyn Clark hype, right? And just start riding that wave so that way everybody eats. Everyone wins. Okay, Caitlyn Clark wins, everybody wins, right? So in that regard, I do think that there is a little bit of blame on the WNBA and its failure to sort of take advantage of this Caitlyn Clark hype. Now, at the same time, I think some blame needs to be shifted onto Caitlyn, okay? And here is why. The WNBA or any sort of company, right, that is trying to promote a certain person, whoever it may be, they can only do but so much because it is also up to you as the player, as the person, whoever it may be, to also be someone that is worth of having this hype, right? And so when it comes to Caitlyn, right, not only does she need to be worth the hype on the court, but she also needs to be worth the hype off the court, right? So discussing on the court. A lot of people are looking at her and how she reacts whenever she doesn't get a call that goes her way, right? How much of an attitude that she has, right? Whether she's a quote-unquote crash out, right? The fact that she is not very efficient from the field, the fact that she is not efficient from three when she is supposed to be a three-point specialist, the fact that she is a liability on defense, everybody is paying attention to that. Okay? So when people are paying attention to that, people are kind of looking and thinking, well, maybe she's not as good as we thought she was. And I'm not saying that she isn't, right? I think she is a phenomenal player. My point, though, is that same hype that Caitlyn carries, at the same time, she needs to continue on and make sure that they still have the hype, right? Caitlyn needs to continue to really develop her game and really make sure that she continues to dominate the same way she did in college. Because if you're not dominating in the WNBA, then it doesn't matter how much promoting the WNBA does, right? Nobody's really going to want to watch at this point. Think about somebody like LeBron James, right? LeBron James, this 18-year-old kid coming straight from high school. Everyone's looking at him like a great, right? And imagine him just not living up to that hype. Right? Imagine how much the NBA is trying to push LeBron James and he, let's say in this hypothetical, does not live up to the hype. Right? So a lot of people, no matter how many times you try to go and you try to promote LeBron, nobody's going to be interested because they're like, oh, well, he's not that good. He's not living up to the hype. Same idea here. Right? And I'm not saying that Caitlyn is having a bad year or that she's a flop or anything else because that's been another conversation. What I'm saying, though, is that she needs to develop her game. She needs to be more efficient from the field. She needs to be more efficient from three, especially given that her whole specialty is that she is a three-point shooter. You cannot be shooting 20 to 30% from three if you're supposed to be known as a three-point specialty. That does not work. So she needs to develop that, maybe develop a mid-range game, maybe work a lot on your defense. You need to do something so that way people can continue to have this conversation about you. Continue to really have a lot of people discuss why you are a very dominant player. So that's on the court. Then off the court, unfortunately, everyone is paying attention to what you're doing. Okay, everyone's paying attention to the statements that you make, what you decide to do in your free time, this, that, and the third. And I think right now, the way Caitlyn is presenting herself off the court, whether it is intentional or not, I don't think the way she is presenting herself is appealing to the WNBA fans that have been around for a while. Okay, and look, like I said, this could be something that is purely no ill intent, right? It's just maybe she really wants to do something and everything else, right? She didn't mean any harm by it. But unfortunately, when you do something in your own personal time, a lot of people are going to associate you with said ideology, belief, whatever it may be. And so I think that is another thing that is also really hurting Caitlyn and that marketability right now is Caitlyn and what she does in her own time, unfortunately. Right? So, like I said, a lot of people are paying attention to what she's doing in her free time, who she decides to associate herself with, what she decides to speak out on or does not decide to speak out on, right? And so a lot of people kind of associate that with, oh, well, if you associate with this person, then you are just like that person. Or if you do not speak out on this, then you believe in that. Right? A lot of people associate you with either one or the other. People look at things very black and white. And so not only do you need to have the on-court presence and that hype and the dominance and everything else, but off the court, you have to make sure that there is pretty much nothing in your personal life that's going to make people turn on you the wrong way. And I think those two things together, I think, is what's right now hurting this marketability about Caitlin Clark with the WNBA. So a lot of people want to shift blame on the WNBA for failing to capitalize on Caitlin Clark and everything else, which I think to an extent, yes, it is true. But at the same time, though, I think there needs to be a little bit more responsibility on Caitlin Clark in ensuring that she is the person that the WNBA can promote. So that's all I kind of wanted to say sort of on that front. And so now let's actually switch over and talk about the NBA playoffs. So right now we are in the middle of the NBA finals, and let's start first with the Western Conference finals. So that was between the San Antonio Spurs and the Oklahoma City Thunder. That series went to 7 games, and the Spurs ended up winning. Now, what's really interesting is that if you actually follow me on social media, you know that I actually made a prediction and said that if Shea is able to score at least 25 points, then the Oklahoma City Thunder should be able to win. And he did score over 25 points. In fact, he scored between 35 and 40 points. But the Oklahoma City Thunder still did not win. And I think one of the reasons why was because of the fact that you saw really great games from Julian Champagnie. You saw a great game from Stephon Castle. You saw a great game from Victor Wembanyama. Meanwhile, with Oklahoma City, all you saw was just a good game from Shea. Because a lot of people want to talk about Chet, but it's true. Like, where was Chet this game? I mean, he only ended up with 4 points and 4 rebounds as somebody that's like 7 feet tall. Right? Like, you cannot have that. You cannot have, your second, third, fourth best player on the team end up with 4 points and 4 rebounds. I think it also hurt the team that Jalen Williams, J-Dub, was out for Game 7 because of an injury. Right? And then, unfortunately, with Jared McCain taking J-Dub's place, he also really did not have that good of a game. So all of the focus, the onus, everything else was focused on Shea. And unfortunately, Shea cannot do everything. Yes, Shea can give you the points. Yes, Shea can give you the assists. But at the same time, he still needs somebody else to help him out. And I don't think he really got that, especially with Game 7. And I think that's why the Spurs were able to go and take advantage of that. Now, in the Eastern Conference, on the other hand, we saw the Knicks face off against the Cavaliers, and the Cavs got swept. The Cavs got swept. Now, in my podcast episode last week, I talked about how if James Harden does not show up in Game 4, then the Cavs are going to get swept and they are going to lose. And after Game 4, James Harden ended the game with 12 points. 12. Yes, Donovan Mitchell had like around 30 points in that game, right? So he did his part. But James Harden cannot enter that game with 12 points. He cannot end that game with 12 points. There is no way. There is no way. Well, because now everyone is kind of looking and thinking, well, the Cavs traded Darius Garland for James Harden because everyone was talking about how Garland kind of disappears during the playoffs, right? So you want someone that is not only cheaper, but then someone that can give you more of an effect, right? Like it's James Harden that we're talking about. But now for Harden to only give you 12 to 15 points in the entire series, now everyone's kind of looking like, okay, so then what was the point of this whole trade if you're just going to disappear? So I think this is something that, first of all, I told you so, but also too, this is just something that I was talking about beforehand, right? Like, you cannot have Donovan Mitchell do all the work. He cannot do all of the work, just like what I was talking about with Shea with OKC. Donovan Mitchell cannot do all the work. You need somebody else to go and help him. And especially with this team like the Knicks that have been on a serious run, right? And so James Harden really needed to step up. He did not, and that's why the Cavs season is over. So maybe they'll think about things through. Maybe they'll change up some things for next season. But hopefully Harden understands how important his role is on this Cavs team, especially looking on the scoring end of the court. And so now we enter the NBA Finals. So game 1, of course, we saw the Knicks have the win. Game 2, we saw the Knicks have a win, okay? But specifically, I want to talk about game 2 because when I tell you that the Knicks nearly lost that game, because they blew a 14-point lead. They blew a 14-point lead. In fact, the only reason why the Knicks actually lost that game, because the Spurs were up. The only reason why the Knicks won that game was because of the fact that Wemby had that costly turnover and ended up fouling Jalen Brunson in the process. Yes, Wemby threw the ball at Devin Vassell's back. Instead of just dribbling it on his own and then looking for somebody else, he threw it immediately at Devin Vassell's back, and that's what caused the costly turnover. And then Brunson got fouled, 2 shots, right? Made the first one, missed the second one, and that is basically how the Spurs ended up losing. Yes, of course, Wemby had the mid-range shot that he ended up missing, and then that's how the Knicks ended up winning. Now, I don't know if that was a miscommunication. I don't know if Wemby kind of thought, oh, Vassell's just going to turn around instead of just keep running through. I don't know what the thinking was there. But right now, I do think that the Spurs are in trouble. Because going into this series, I did not think that the Spurs were going to get swept. But the way that they are playing right now, it is looking like they are about to get swept. I still don't think so. I'm going to make that abundantly clear. I do not think that they are going to get swept. I think they are going to win at least one game. But right now, it is not looking good at all. Because Game 3 is held at Madison Square Garden. Game 4 is going to be held at Madison Square Garden. And you know that the Garden is rocking, especially with the Knicks right now. So you know, with the Knicks being at home with this lead, right? Again, just going through the first 2 games so far, with this lead, oh yeah, there's going to be a lot of momentum and everything else, and there's going to be a lot of pressure on the Spurs at that moment. You already know that. So I still stand on the fact that I think this is going to be a 6 to 7 game series. That's kind of where I'm still at. But right now, the way that the series is playing out, the way that the Spurs right now are playing versus how the Knicks are playing, especially Karl Anthony Towns and how great he is doing right now and how much he is bodying Wemby right now. Even Jalen Brunson, how great he is playing right now, right? Even OG, how much of an impact he is having on the court. It is kind of looking like the Knicks are going to win this series. It is. It is looking like the Knicks are going to be winning this series. But I don't want to jinx anything. I still think that this is going to be, like I said beforehand, a 6 to 7 game series. But the way that they are playing right now, the Knicks are right now playing like they are going to be the NBA champs. But I'm really excited to see how Game 4 ends up being and everything else. And I'll be talking about Game 3, Game 4, and the rest of the series and everything else in next week's episode. But before I continue, please be sure to check out my description box down below. That'll give you all of my social media accounts, my TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. Those will give you daily bite-sized news and scores that's happened in sports. And also, too, this video is available on Spotify and also on Patreon. So be sure to go follow my page on there using the links in the description box. And also, too, please be sure to subscribe to my channel down below because I will be posting podcast episodes just like this every Monday at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And also, too, turn on notifications so you do not miss a single episode. And also, too, if you really enjoy this episode, then please be sure to give it a thumbs up so that way I can continue to make videos just like this. So now let's actually shift over and talk about the NHL playoffs. So similarly to the NBA, we are in the middle of the NHL Stanley Cup Finals. So let's actually recap what's happened in the conference finals. So starting with the Eastern Conference, we did have the Carolina Hurricanes versus the Montreal Canadiens, and the Hurricanes ended up beating the Canadiens 4-1 in the series. And then we go over to the Western Conference between the Vegas Golden Knights and the Colorado Avalanche. And the Golden Knights swept the Avalanche, winning 4-0. Now, that one, I was a little shocked. Carolina, not too much. I wasn't that shocked that they won 4-1. The Avalanche getting swept, I did not expect. Especially how good they have been playing in the regular season so far. I was not expecting for them to get swept. So now we're at the Stanley Cup Finals, and it is between the Golden Knights and the Hurricanes. So now we go over to Game 1, in which the Golden Knights ended up winning 5-4. And then we go over to Game 2, in which the Hurricanes ended up winning 4-3 in overtime. And then we get over to Game 3 that just happened recently, and the Golden Knights barely survived, winning 5-4 in double overtime. Now, I want to speak specifically about Game 3 because I think that a game like that kind of sort of indicates what I think is going to happen with the rest of the series. And let me explain. So, the Golden Knights here were up 4-0 going into the third period, okay? In the second period, you saw the Golden Knights score 4 goals, 3 of them by Mitch Marner, and then one of them that was actually assisted by Marner, but the goal was actually scored by Hurdle. And then you go into the third period, right, 4-0, and everyone kind of thinks, okay, well, the Golden Knights kind of, secured this win, right? No. The Hurricanes ended up tying that game to take it to overtime. Not only that, but they also scored 3 goals in 1 minute. 3, yes. They scored 3 goals in 1 minute. And then their their last goal in regulation was scored with less than 2 minutes left in regulation. And then you take it into overtime. Then they took it into double overtime. And then that's when Shea Theodore came through for the Golden Knights. And that is how the Golden Knights escaped with that win. So I want you to keep this in mind, okay? Because the Golden Knights, like I said, they were up 4-0. They blew that lead and nearly lost. Okay, so what this is over here telling me, right, especially how good the Hurricanes have been playing, and especially how good their defense is, I do think that this is going to be a battle. I don't think that the Golden Knights are going to be winning like 3-0, 4-0, 5-0. I don't think we are ever going to see that type of game. And I think that's what Game 3 showed everybody, was that even if you think that the Golden Knights are going to basically win by a lot, they're not going to, because the Hurricanes are going to come back. And also what I think that Game 3 showed us is that this is going to be a very competitive series. And when I mean competitive, I mean like a 7-game series. I would not be shocked if we had another 2 or 3 games where it is going to go into overtime. I would not be shocked at all. Now, especially after this Game 3 performance, I do think that the Golden Knights are going to be putting a lot of emphasis on Mitch Marner. I think especially with the hat trick that he had in the second period, I think especially with the assist, there is going to be a lot of pressure on Marner to be able to step up for the Golden Knights for the rest of this series. Now, for the Hurricanes, I do think that a lot of this pressure is going to be on Anderson, and it's especially going to be on their defense, because I think we are going to see a lot of offensive pressure from players such as Marner. So I'm really excited for this series, because I do think that, like I said beforehand, this is going to be a 6 or 7 game series. I could actually see this going into 7 games. And on top of that, I do think we are going to see the next couple of games go into overtime at least, because I think that is how competitive that this series is going to be. But now, as our last topic of the day, I want to talk about the World Cup, because the World Cup officially starts this Thursday. So we do have quite a few matches for this upcoming week, right, with the group stages and everything else. So let's actually discuss what we're about to see. So on Thursday, we do have 2 Group A matchups. We do have Mexico versus South Africa first, and then later on, we do have South Korea versus Czechia. Now, as far as Mexico versus South Africa, just as a quick prediction, I do think that Mexico is going to win. And then for South Korea versus Czechia, I think that South Korea is going to end up winning. Just quick early predictions. Then on Friday, we have two matchups. The first one being a Group B matchup, which is between Canada and Bosnia. And just as an early prediction, I do think that Canada is going to win. And then later on that day, we have a Group D matchup, which is between USA and Paraguay. Now, look, I am Team USA. I am very patriotic and everything else, but I do not have a lot of faith in Team USA, honestly. Even though they were actually looking decent in the friendlies, even though we lost to Germany, but like, okay. Even though, right, they have been looking pretty decent, but either way, as an early prediction, I do think that Paraguay is going to win. I don't think it's going to be a blowout game, but I do think that it's going to be a win by Paraguay. And then on Saturday, we actually have three matchups. We have the other Group B matchup, which is between Qatar and Switzerland. And I do think that Switzerland is going to win, just like as an early prediction. And then we have two Group C matchups. First one being against Brazil and Morocco. Now, I do think that despite Brazil not going to be able to have Neymar for this matchup, which, again, they're saying right now that he is highly doubtful of showing up against Morocco. So I'm just kind of assuming that he's just not going to be there, especially given that he's getting an MRI today. But I do think that despite them not having Neymar, I do think that Brazil is going to beat Morocco. And then later on, we do have the other Group C matchup, which is between Haiti and Scotland. And I think this is going to be a really close matchup, but I do think that Scotland is going to win. And then on Sunday, we have a total of 5 matches. So first up, we have another Group D matchup, which is between Australia and Turkey. And I do think that Australia is going to beat Turkey. And then afterwards, we have a Group E matchup, which is between Germany and Curacao. And I do think that Germany is going to win. Afterwards, we do have a Group F matchup, which is between Netherlands and Japan. And I do think this is going to be a really good game. And I actually think that Japan is going to beat the Netherlands. And then after that, we have another Group E matchup, which is between Ivory Coast and Ecuador. And I do think that Ecuador is going to win. And then last but not least, we do have the Group F matchup, which is between Tunisia and Sweden. And I do think that Tunisia is actually going to pull off this win. But those are just early predictions. I'll be talking more about the World Cup next week. But that is all for this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to tune in next Monday at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we'll be talking more about the World Cup. We'll be recapping the NBA and NHL Finals, talk about a little bit of boxing, and so much more. So I will see you all next Monday at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and thank you for tuning in. Bye.